Hans will take one for the team.
Fine. I will give Trump a blowjob if it gets the GOP to actually impeach him. Nick, can you help me find it?
Welcome to Gay Talk 2.0, the ultimate podcast for your dose of dish.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another episode of Gay Talk 2.0, an LGBT podcast streaming live on Digital Stream Radio, where we're coming to you at 6 p.m. 6:30, 6 p.m., who knows? But anyway, you can access that live stream by visiting digitalstreamradio.com. On today's show, we are going to welcome in studio our guest. Our honored guest is Hans M Hirschi. He is the author of the fantasy trilogy, The Golden One. Book one is called Blooming. The second one that he released is Deceit. And the final book, which was just released last September, is called Reckoning. We have the entire collection here listed for all of our Patreon viewers to see. They're amazing, they're awesome, and we're super excited that he's in studio with us. My name is Tom, and I'm your host, and as always, I'm here in the studio, Sans Ones today, but we'll start with the first one.
Hey, y'all, Nick or Trish.
And
Hey, you all. I'm Hans.
welcome you all to
The Dish.
So
oh my God, you nailed it, Hans!
Hey.
I'm proud of you, baby. See?
I've been listening for years.
So, just to make
I've always
sure
wanted to actually say that.
get him a little bit more volume. Anyway, so I'm excited that you're here with us.
Well, thank you for having me.
Are you kidding me? I wouldn't have it any other way. We wouldn't have it any other way. We've been looking forward to seeing you in studio and being able to talk about this amazing series that you wrote, which we'll get to on the second half of the show.
I've just been looking forward to meeting you,
And
like in person.
So yeah, because so Chris is not in studio, by the way. He had an emergency. Unfortunately, he couldn't join us today, but he will be back next week. And so that being said, Chris and I had an opportunity to meet you about last year, I believe it was.
Yeah, it was a couple of years ago.
Yeah, and we were in the city and we went and we had dinner and it was an amazing experience to meet him in person. But Nick had not had that opportunity.
Correct.
So
Nope.
we're going to talk a little bit about our weekends, and you can tell us about your rendezvous and your running around town, New Haven with the Hans.
Yeah, can I ask you just to turn me up a little bit? In my
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Let's see, which one are you?
This is intern over here.
Okay, can you hear yourself a little
Yeah,
better?
that's better. Thank
Perfect.
you. So Hans came into town and randomly at the theater. We've been talking about it for weeks now. We
That's
have
right.
On the Grounds of Belonging, which is a beautiful show. Takes place in the 1950s Texas, as we've talked about. But Hans got to come and see the show with me yesterday, and it was
I heard really good stuff. People that seen it were just like raving about
well.
it. So
I mean, ask Hans. What did you think?
yeah,
It's absolutely worth seeing. I was sending a message this morning because I promised the playwright last night. When we left the theater, I walked up to him and gave him a hug because I was speechless. I had no words. It was
Bring that
it
mic
was it was really, really powerful. And so I sent him a message this morning and tried to explain in brief how I felt. But I'm still at loss for words. It's a really powerful experience. It's very multifaceted with regards to not just the racial issues that are depicted on the surface, but what I found really interesting is the fact that you bring in the LGBT element to it. You bring in elements of use, abuse, the power dynamics within a relationship, or even what some would consider a relationship, and the other half doesn't necessarily
Right.
see that. It is there is so much to pick. So even if you're not interested in the whole black and white element of it, there's still so much you can take home from that play.
Mhm.
It was amazing.
that's awesome. So you had if you don't mind, I wanted to read something that you posted on Facebook. Is that okay?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So you ended up writing a little something after seeing the show, and you said you had a very powerful, for lack of a more appropriate word, experience at the Long Wharf Theater last night. This new play of theirs is a kaleidoscope of takes on racial and social issues
Can I pause you for a second?
within American society.
When you said, so I was reading that as well this morning, and kaleidoscope, the word that you used, Jacob, our new artistic director, uses that word all the time. And the fact that you, in his first show that he brought to the theater pulled that from the show was so powerful to me, because I'm sure you've never heard him speak about the theater,
No.
but he always says a kaleidoscope of faces and art and people and everything, and that is part of his vision. I'm sorry, Tony.
You're
No,
welcome.
that's okay.
I'm
So,
good.
so you went on to say that while this is set in the 50s, you realize how the message, sadly, still applies to our times, how different groups treat each other within the LGBT community and outside of it, with all these layers of power, use, and abuse. This one will be with me for a long time as I process its many lessons. So, obviously, it was impactful for you. So, you're still processing what you're feeling given what you've just seen. Can
Yeah,
you
and
elaborate a little bit more on that?
there's a lot going on, and I also have to add to slightly complicate to it. I also saw a play on Broadway. I saw a show on Broadway on Friday night with another good friend of mine. Don't take it away from me. I want my microphone.
There you go. Sorry,
Yeah.
we were having a little technical
Okay,
difficulties. over here.
so I saw another show on Broadway.
Mhm.
I saw Oklahoma, a remake of Oklahoma. So, and that was equally powerful. It was they're actually current holder of the Tony for best remake of a musical. So I'm currently processing two shows at the same time, and it's taking some time because this my processor is from 1967.
Yeah.
They don't work that fast.
Yep.
But it's just there are so many little things that I took away from that show. There's that one scene that Nick and I ended up talking about at dinner last night, where the black manager of the gay establishment has a quick conversation with a bat in his hand with the white owner of said establishment, and he turns the gay card against him, which I found very profound. But you have to see it in the context to actually get it.
It was somebody using their white privilege against an African American, and then that African American then flipped that card. It was a really powerful moment that we chatted about.
Yeah, and the other thing that I thought was really resonating with me was there's kind of a threesome going on. There's two black kids and the white kid, and one of the black kids gets really, really jealous because he's treated his best friend kind of like a doormat, kind of assuming that he's the fallback person he can always go back to if he doesn't have anything better to do. And and that power dynamic, I've been a victim of that myself and I think it's something that a lot of people, whether straight or gay, that is completely relevant in the situation. But the fact that you can, and the interesting thing is, though, the main character at the beginning, he was kind of fine with it. I'm not even sure if he realized that he was being used.
I think there was a moment where he woke
Yeah,
to what was
exactly.
happening, and I think that moment is clear in the play. You know what scene I'm
Well,
talking
yes,
about.
yeah, absolutely. But the fact that he was fine with being used as a doormat for the longest time, and it's also about abuse in relationships and physical abuse and emotional abuse. I mean, I could go on forever.
And being also like having this moment where you think this is what love is, when in reality, when you find it, I think that's what woke the character to be like, no, I thought I was in love with this idea of this relationship, this person, but this is what love is. Love looks back at you. And I think that was a super powerful moment. But we were walking out of the theater, and I'm going to get emotional like I always do. But we were walking out of the theater, and he kept on saying, "You had more asthma than I did." And basically, because I kept crying, I would get emotional.
She does cry a lot.
And I literally said, I don't know how to process this right now. It's gut-wrenching. And I started tearing up again before we got in the car. Because seeing that story, not only seeing that story on the Long Wharf stage, but seeing that story for me was super impactful, because we see LGBT stories in movies and TV, but we don't see it on stage. And seeing theater in a community setting and being with other people and feeling the power and the emotion of the people's reactions is what drives theater and what's important about theater. And the fact that there are so many levels to that story, but what really sticks out to me, and I wanted to say this in the talk back last night, is this thread of love. There is so much love that is poured into this relationship on our stage. And when we talk about the LGBT or gay community, everybody thinks sex, this, that, and there is a sex scene, done very tastefully, but what you really take away from it, it's not that scene. It's the fact that
Of
these
course
two
not.
individuals
Yeah.
are gut-wrenching in love with one another.
And I would imagine, I have not seen it myself, I would imagine that it would be a beautiful thing to see on a stage, especially when the stories being brought to you by two Latinx creators and writer. It's just incredible to see that the representation that you're seeing on stage is being created by people who may on a daily basis live those experiences, even in today's world, like
Yeah.
you said.
If you allow me to add one thing, it's I was listening to your extra episode last week, and I
Mhm.
was, because obviously I was curious because I knew I was going to see the play, and knowing that the overall theme was, I mean, just simplifying, was Romeo and Juliet. I was like, oh my God, it's going to have an unhappy ending. I'm so going to cry. And I was telling Nick, I'm going to be holding your hand. I'm going to cry through this thing. I cannot. And then he starts tearing up. And when I have someone crying next to me, I can't. But there's a reason why I couldn't cry last night, and that's, I'm European, so I've lived in the U.S. I know a whole lot about the U.S. politics, history, and everything. But the very superficial, and I'm using this word purposely, the very superficial way how the blatant racism of the era is portrayed, how powerfully that is done, how beautifully it is done, had a physical, painful impact on me. I was literally crunching in my seat. I was hurting.
Mhm.
I was in pain. I was in physical pain just watching. And Russell, that's the name of the character, right?
The lead,
Russell,
yeah.
the black kid. How he looks down at everybody else. I mean, to me, I have never experienced this myself. I mean, I have experienced racism here in the U.S. firsthand. I have, because one of my best friends is from the Bahamas. We've traveled together, and I have seen some horrible things, but obviously not to this level because
Right.
she doesn't take it that way. But when I just, it was literally, it was hurting me. I
Yeah.
was in pain.
It's funny that you bring that up because there's one character that we talked about that the owner of the establishment, the bar, um, when he walks into the room, the first time we meet him in the play, there he literally sucks the air out of the space. And what's interesting to me, because I've seen bits and pieces and I've read the play before seeing the show, but Hans, the moment the door opened, he had a physical reaction to this character before he even opened his mouth. And that's when you know theater's doing something right. And every time that character entered the stage, I could hear him or feel him get worried. What's gonna happen?
Yeah.
And like it was a fun experience to see the show with you. Like you reacted the way you react. I just felt all of you really fell into the play. It was
Well,
beautiful.
I'm an empath. It's just how I think. But I mean, we can go on and talk about this forever. But I mean, if you are in the New Haven area or just within the nearest 200 miles of it,
Take
go
the drive.
see it. Go see it. You're not going to be disappointed. This is such an amazing play.
That's
Very,
fantastic.
very well done.
So, so it sounds like it was a very powerful moment for anyone that may have been sitting in those chairs at the time when the play was going on. So, I plan on going to see it this Wednesday. So I'm not
Good.
sure if you're doing anything, but you can come.
It's
with.
opening. If you want to come this Wednesday, I have to like squeeze you into the list.
Okay.
You have to tell me in advance. Hello.
She's
Well, he's
nasty.
telling you now.
I
He's
know,
telling
I
you
got
now.
it.
Better get it done.
So yeah, no, that's just what I plan to do. But I would like to experience this because I can only imagine what it would be like to look around and see the crowd, right? If the crowd happens to be predominantly Caucasian, to see their faces and to see this kind of material thrown at them and their reactions, like you said, your physical reaction, they're like you physically were feeling um pain at what you were watching. And to me, part of that experience is to see the audience's reaction to what's being shown. Which I think is also very powerful because it's really profound when truth stares at you in the face and you are forced to confront it in a way that makes you reevaluate what you do on a daily basis when you're watching something like this.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm excited.
Yeah.
I'm
It's
excited.
yeah, I'm excited just to be able to work at a place that's sharing this story. So, yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, check it out. You can go to longwharf.org to
Proud of
look
you.
look for tickets and information on the play and how when they're playing and times and stuff. And so we encourage that you go do that. So on the show, on numerous occasions, we're going to move on to another topic. We have gotten several emails from a lot of people over the course of the past 3 years, and we on occasion will try to um, talk about some of the things that, as long as they let us, of course, and we did ask and they were okay with us discussing this today. But we had a couple who have been listening for quite a while. Our good listeners, RJ and his boyfriend Marcos, have been listening for a very long time, and they're from Texas. And he basically sent out an email asking us for a little bit of advice. And so we wanted to sort of kind of read this to you and give you an idea of what it was that he was asking. And we're going to sit here and have a little roundtable and talk about the different, options that as a gay person you would have when you're moving into a new city. So he wrote the following. He goes, "Hello, Gay Talk, my Gay Talk family. My name is RJ. My boyfriend Marcos and I have been a longtime listener from Texas, and I believe that we started listening somewhere in the summer of 2016. I just wanted to write to say to say how much I appreciate and love the show. Your podcast has become my therapeutic relief throughout the week, allowing me to take a break from life. We love that y'all are able to get people like Dr. G on the show. I'm currently a nursing student, and my
And
boyfriend
Hans.
and Hans, of course, and my boyfriend is a medical student, and we always love connecting to what we're learning when Dr. G mentions information in some of your episodes, as well as learning through all the questions that you guys ask. My question is that at the end of the school year, my boyfriend and I will be moving into a new city for his residency, and I wanted to ask for advice on making new LGBT friends. My boyfriend and I always wanted a gaggle of our own, but we've been having a hard time making friends in the LGBT community due to being occupied in school and anxiety, etc. So I thought that I'd ask my favorite podcast, Gaggle, for advice and hope that one day we get to share a cocktail with you guys. Thank you so much for taking the time to read this. Love, Marcos and RJ. So I thought to myself, this could be a really interesting topic to have on today's episode, especially because Hans, you're here with us and you are what I consider a world traveler. You've been to so many places and you travel constantly. And I think that you would really have some amazing insight on how to meet people in different parts of the world or even, in another city. And hopefully we can, chime in and talk about that.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to throw that out on the table and have a discussion about it. So why don't we start off with you, Hans?
Thank you. Well, RJ, Marcos, good luck on your move. This is obviously not an easy question. And as a European, I'm not sure I am the most qualified person to answer this with regards to social conventions here in the US. And you're putting me a bit on the spot here because
It's what we
which
do
is yes,
best.
I know, which is fine because when I travel and I'm in a new city for a week or two or a couple of days, I mean obviously the go-to place would be Grinder or places like that, and you put yourself out there and you meet people that way. Now Grinder might not be the well, at least you think that Grinder or all Scruff or whatever.
Chris will argue into the ground that it's a place where you can meet friends.
Of course, it is. Actually, it is. It is. Well, the one, the meat market does not necessarily exclude the other half of it, right?
No, of course.
So, I mean, I can just since since you put me on the spot and I'm sitting here, just one quick example. My husband and I were in Singapore a few years ago, and on Grinder, I met this guy, and at the time he was 17, but we met and we talked and we had coffee, and he was super super social, and nothing ever happened, nothing ever came of it. and we became friends. And I mean, and I just met him again when I was in Liverpool a couple of weeks ago. He's moved to England for his studies, and I finally got the chance to see him again. But we've been friends. So yes, it is a meat market, but it always depends on what you make of it. But it doesn't have to be grindy. I mean, you can go to your local LGBT center.
Mm-hmm.
You can use Facebook groups. You can just Google for stuff. Now, I understand that when you're suffering from anxiety, that might be more challenging. So I would probably suggest to go slow, to
Yeah.
go online, to talk, to chat to people first. I mean, the three of us, or the four of us, including Chris, we had conversations online long before we first met physically.
That's right.
So I would suggest to go slowly, but there are definitely ways. You just have to put yourself out there and be brave and just take the plunge.
And I think, another thing that you could possibly do, and, and so people say, oh, this is so cliche, but the reality is that our bars in our local towns are our safe spaces. That's where we can go and be ourselves and be most comfortable with who we are as a community. And so if you go into these spaces, don't be afraid to be the what we someone may consider, the local may consider, oh, the nerd going to the board that they may have and where they're advertising, hey, listen, we have a gay bowling league, or we have, these activities that are happening. This gay artist is having an exposition or displaying some of his work. Maybe you could, take interest in going and getting to interact with different people from different social structures that would allow you to open up to an array of people that you might find interesting and find common ground with and be able to enjoy, for the occasional dinner out with friends and things like that. And I think that, we shouldn't, just because it's a bar, discount the fact that these spaces traditionally have been where most people would meet other gay people and eventually have a gaggle of friends that you could, kiki with at the restaurant for brunch every Sunday. And I think it provides a really good opportunity. So I want to make clear that, going to a bar to meet people is not a negative thing, contrary to what some people might say.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. When I first moved, so my little story, Hans, when I first moved here to New Haven, I really didn't know many people, but I knew I had some friends from my hometown that had some weird connection to the new city that I moved to. So I invited them down so that I had people I knew, and we went out because I felt comfortable with them. We went out to the gay bar. We went out to York Street, and that's where I met John, who became one of my closest friends when I first moved here, and he was my first. He literally was my network. He started my network, and through him I developed an entire group of friends. Met my first Steve through him, but I think using the resources that you have and the connections that you have in your hometown can help you in the new town. I mean, a lot of people, whether you realize it or not, have weird connections or are connected to different people that may be in the same city.
5 degrees of separation
that you're moving to. So use those people, talk to them, ask them about this person, ask them about what they know about the area, what they know about this person, how they feel about this person. And then it's a way just to kind of slowly enter into. But also I think you're right too. I think pride centers, go to Meetup. It's not gay, it's not straight, it's for everybody. Meetup is an app, it's also a website. And they have different activities. My best girlfriend, who is not gay, moved out to Colorado. And when she moved there, she had no friends. And she signed up for Meetup. And she developed an entire group of friends and actually met her husband eventually through this.
That's awesome.
There are so many aspects, especially with, the way the internet is now. I mean, everybody's connected. There are so many ways to connect with people now. With the anxiety thing, here's my suggestion. I know we don't like to talk about Dan on the show anymore, but I do still love Dan Savage. And he says if you're going on a date, don't get messy, don't get sloshed, but have a cocktail before you have your conversation.
Yeah.
You'll get relaxed. It'll relax you, and you can have a calm conversation. One cocktail. That's it.
And then the other thing too is like, so you're both in the medical field. One is about to start their residency at a local hospital, which is what I'm going to assume, or some sort of medical facility. And you're doing that. One of the best places to actually develop meaningful relationships too is in the workplace. A lot of people don't realize we spend 40 plus hours in our workplace, and the people that you meet and the people that you engage with tend are like your like unofficial second family because you're with them more than you are with anybody else.
I just want to say I'm gonna combat you a little bit on that because
And I would expect that you would.
I think it's important because like I am one of the opposite house on that topic because a lot of my coworkers hang and spend time only with my coworkers. And I find that personally for me to be unhealthy because then we end up just talking about shop and talking about work and never actually getting us out there, me out there, and expressing what's going on in my personal life out there.
But what I
And
also
so
wanted to add
building
to
that personal circle outside of work is also very
Oh
important.
no, it is. But that's what I'm saying. So if you meet people at work that you know are part of the community, it's okay to use them to find other people that are meaningful that may not even be part of the profession that could lead you to broaden your friendship circle to meet other people that eventually will become your little gaggle of friends that you can go with. So what I'm saying is don't close your doors to the opportunity of meeting friends in any setting because they could end up being lifelong friends, and it doesn't necessarily your gaggle of friends doesn't necessarily have to mean that they have to be gay. I mean, yes, who doesn't love a really good kiki? But in reality, is we have friends in all walks of life. So don't close that door on yourself. Leave yourself open to have friends outside of your community because those are also very meaningful and sometimes very necessary.
Yeah. Just to expand on what you said, Tom, I think you can. It's not just work. Sometimes you find people in the oddest of places. Now, I'm a little bit older and I don't go out anymore. I'll be honest, I hate going out. I don't like bars. I don't like the noise. I don't like the alcohol. But if I look at my and my husband's circle of friends, I there's a certain pattern, and some of them come from internet dating apps or whatever, but most of them come either from people we met in college, which could be 10 years ago for him or 15 years ago and 40, 50 years ago with regards to me. But just recently, my husband and I, we have a 6-year-old kid, so he went through our health system in Sweden, and we had a nurse, and that clinic was LGBT certified. About 6 months ago, we get a phone call from that nurse, and she says, well, we have this gay couple here, and they're about to become fathers, and they would really like to know another gay couple. And would you be willing to talk to them? And we said, yeah, sure, of course, And Alex had a phone call with one of the guys, and then we kind of lost touch. And recently, I asked Alex, did you ever talk to them? Did we ever follow up with them? And so he texted them, and we met, and we hit it off.
Yeah.
They have a beautiful 6-month-old boy. We have a 6.5-year-old, and we kind of hit it off as parents.
Yeah.
But it's like the furthest topic you would think of. It's not work. It's not, but it is a connection. And I think it's specifically, and I think the fact that they mention anxiety, I think it is relatively important. And I'm not a big fan of using alcohol to loosen your anxiety. It may work in some instances, but usually it's a bad idea. So I would say use social settings where you feel comfortable with people that you are comfortable with in that new area, whether it is nursing school or whether it is at the hospital where the residency takes place, or choir or anything else. I mean, whatever you're interested in, and if you find friends, straight friends or gay friends, it doesn't really matter, right? Because they're a couple, they're probably not interested in hookups. So friends, with regards to friends, their sexuality should be secondary or is secondary, but you will find people through whatever hobby you have, and over a period of time, a year, 5 years, 10 years, you'll get your gaggle, but it comes from
A variety
Yeah.
of
from a
places.
variety of places, and it's kind of fun to have these people at the same dinner. And so yeah, but yeah, go out there, but just make sure you feel comfortable in whatever setting you choose.
So one of the other things that I've done, like I was recently in Orlando when I went down for Mother's Day to visit mom, and one of the first things that I did, instead of looking where's the nearest bar, I looked for LGBTQ establishments, whether that was a restaurant, whether that was a library, because what I was looking for not only was to support my community, go to places in this new space that I'm in, and support my community, but also it provides you an opportunity to meet friends outside of an environment in where alcohol is involved, maybe a bar. But you can go to a restaurant, you can go to a bake shop, something in where the owner could possibly guide you or have people that you can meet that could also become part of your circle. There's so many things that you can do, but a lot of it really is accessible. I mean, we have so much information accessible online, and I can tell you that when I was in Orlando, I ended up going to several establishments that had nothing to do with like a bar and stuff, and really found it that it was really amazing to see not only people in our own community succeed, but you also start helping and putting yourself out there in spaces where people could notice who you are and say, hey, how are you? And sit down. And you can have a nonchalant conversation with a stranger that eventually could also become someone who would be your friend. And again, as Hans was saying, if you're suffering from anxiety, some of these spaces tend to be that neutralizer. You walk into a bakery, the sensory, the smells, and this and that sort of kind of gets your mind off the fact that you might run into someone that you can strike a conversation with, coffee, sweets, and things like that. It just really makes it that much better for the opportunity of putting yourself out there as well.
So the last thing I want to say on this topic is gayrealestate.com.
That's right.
It's a thing,
Mhm,
and
it really
in
is.
every state there are gay realtors
That's right.
that have become a part of this group. And if you type in the city that you're moving to, it will provide you with a couple or one, depending on the state, realtors that could help you find not only a gay friendly neighborhood,
That's right.
but also direct you in the sense that this is the neighborhood you may want to move in. This is an upcoming neighborhood, but also these are the local establishments that you want to be around. So gayrealestate.com, check it out, and you can get apartments there, houses there.
Mhm.
That is a great resource for homosexuals that are moving. I mean, really, if I was moving somewhere, I would go to gayrealestate.com because they would put me exactly where I want to be. You know what I'm saying?
We know. So,
You don't need a realtor to know where you want to be.
I know I can sniff
The
it out.
world knows.
Oh, she can sniff them out. Trust me, she don't need no help. But what I wanted to say that with that, I think that that's a perfect time to take the opportunity to wish you both good luck on your move, and I hope that you guys, once you get there, can acclimate yourselves to your surroundings and make a lot of good friends. And thank you for the opportunity of being able to have this discussion based on the topics that you sent over. It's really truly great that you thought of us for us to be able to have this conversation. That should lead us into break. So we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we have Hans Hirschi, who's sitting here with us. And of course, we're going to be talking about this amazing book collection sitting in front of us. Here's some music, and we will be right back.
It's hard to see you with a man you call your friend, but in the end, I know I don't have much time to tell you why I wanna die, but then I cry, so then I lie, so I don't make you bend time. 'Cause if you wanted me to move, you know I would, because I'm good at making you love me. And if I said I needed more than I came for, would you ignore me making you love me? This is and your eyes confirm that this is it.
All right, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, from the break. That was Time by the incredible Pat Riley. And now we get to have a conversation with this amazing author who's been a part of our show for the better part of 2.5 years. And we're super excited that he's been with us that long. And also, even more so excited the fact that he's sitting in our studio because he is from Sweden. We're talking of none other than the incredible Hans M Hirschi and his new collection of books. Of course, the Golden one, the third installment of the book was just released last September, and we're super excited because we're going to have a conversation about this amazing series. And welcome to the show, Hans, once again, live and in color.
Thank you.
I was expecting a little bit more fanfare, but okay. So you're here. You're queer.
I'm drunk.
Aren't we all?
Yeah,
Are you
well,
really?
I'm not. I'm not used to the level of alcohol you guys are.
Yeah, so see,
I'm just-
welcome. This is what happens when
So
you're a
we
guest
went
on
to
the show.
lunch and
Yeah, did.
we all had 2 margaritas. No, you had 3.
I had 3. Yeah,
I had to.
We had 2 margaritas, and now we're
Yeah.
having a cocktail.
that's
Yeah.
right. And we're gonna try to talk about these amazing 3 books that are sitting here in front of us. So Hans, you wrote the series. It took you, well, the entire journey itself. What, probably about more so a year and a half to write all
Yeah,
these 3.
yeah.
And you started off with the first book, which was Blooming, and then
Mhm.
you came out with the second book, which was Deceit, and finally you wrap things up with Reckoning. Well,
Mhm.
sort of, kind of. It's
Which
left
makes
in
a
the
lot
air.
of sense, right?
Yeah.
For book 1, book 2, book 3.
And so I want you to tell us a little bit about your journey about writing the series. Tell us what started. Where did the idea come from?
What is it about?
Yeah.
Okay.
Give us the tea.
I'm not going to say what it's about, but because that would be giving the stuff away. Well, what I can say is a young adult
Mhm.
fantasy about a group of shapeshifters, and it's environmentally themed. So it kind of fits with. Although I started writing this stuff before Greta, I can say that I was before Greta. So I was like 1 year before 1BG, 1 year before Greta, before it became a big thing, the whole environmental thing.
Okay.
But so just having said that, but the idea for it came. I'm a Gemini, so I like to do a lot of different stuff. So I've written erotica, I've written sci-fi, I've written half historical, contemporary, very literary stuff, and fantasy was not really something that I was interested in. I don't necessarily like to read it myself. Although I have, being an author, you get a lot of stuff sent to you from friends and wannabe friends and other authors who just say, "Oh, can you read my book, please?" And so I've read a lot of fantasy, and I generally don't like it. But there was a reviewer down south in Georgia, and she works with my publisher, and my publisher is married, and her husband at some point had a radio show, and he and this reviewer invited me onto their radio show, and they asked me in the UK, and they asked me about this, and she at just some point said, given the way you write, how you, with all those pictures that you evoke, with all the emotions you'd be so good at writing fantasy. and it kind of stopped me dead in my tracks, because that was the least thing I had ever thought about. The last thing I would ever consider was writing fantasy. It was probably as unlikely as me writing a romance novel. So I was just like, I was just flabbergasted. And it took me a couple of weeks of contemplation, and these things, and this is how I work with any story that I write, is it pops up as an image in my mind, and I don't always know where they come from. They somehow emerged from the depth of my subconscious. And I was out there and I saw this image of um, a butterfly flying through a meadow with a lot of flowers. And everybody who's ever seen a butterfly, you know how they kind of that dance-like
Yeah.
motion they had, the up and down and the left and right, and for some odd reason, I saw the flowers from the point of view of the butterfly, which is impossible because I've never been a butterfly, but I saw these really really intense colors and colors on a spectrum that my eyes would not conceive. Now I was out there walking somewhere and I saw this picture and I was just like, okay, I've got to write this down. And just from there, it just kind of started evolving.
So it turned into this amazing sci-fi series about a young boy,
Fantasy, yes.
or fantasy, excuse me,
Mhm.
about a young boy who discovers
Mm-hmm.
that
That he's a shapeshifter. He's, in fact, a butterfly. Well,
And-
he can turn into a butterfly.
And so throughout the entire story in the first book, you talk about friendship, environmental impacts, his interactions with people that come into his life as a
Mhm.
result of this new ability that he finds that he has. And the book sort of kind of develops and sets the storyline for the next two books.
Mm.
Um, there's a huge environmental, as you said before, an environmental
Aspect.
aspect of the book, and where it's bringing light to a lot of the things that are happening environmentally, that humans are doing environmentally to
Mhm.
the planet.
Yeah.
And so you're taking a character, a very young man, and you're infusing it with some of today's biggest issues with climate change and global warming, and creating an amazing story
Mhm.
behind the journey that he's about to go on.
Yeah.
It's interesting enough, it talks about heartache and loss, and there's so much that encompasses all of these three books. Um, did you always know that at some point, specifically with the book Deceit, that was what was going to happen in his life in order for him to realize eventually what he came to do in Reckoning?
Um, no. um, I I have to give a little bit more background. So the these shapeshifters. Now, when I started writing this book, when I finally decided, okay, let's do this, um, I said, okay, this needs to be a trilogy because when you write fantasy, there's a lot of world building going on.
Mm-hmm.
And so I didn't want to cram it all into one story because there would not have been enough character development. And that's one of the things that's always very, very important to me. I want my characters to feel as human as possible. And this may sound corny, but they are to me. I mean, I cannot distinguish between my characters and people out there in the world. Um, and something else I decided, I wanted to keep it as realistic as humanly possible, as if this were just any other contemporary story out there.
Right.
But the premise of the story is that at some point in human development, we started to do damage to our planet,
Mm-hmm.
to our environment. And Mother Earth decided to intervene and created this group of shapeshifters who can shift into specific animals. Every human has every person has a different animal they can shift into, and they have one given power. And they're tasked to protect the planet on her behalf, on nature's behalf. Every now and then, things get really, really bad. There's a really, really bad crisis where the regular shapeshifters that they can't deal with, so they need some kind of superhero. And that's when the golden butterfly appears, because the golden butterfly has additional powers in terms of persuasion, etc., that the others do not have. And those are really only in extreme. And I describe a few of those instances throughout the book in kind of setting canon. Now, this also set me up for certain difficulties because when you build a world, it's very difficult to change that world,
Mm-hmm.
right? You can either add a new city to it. I mean, everybody who's seen Game of Thrones knows that after in season 7, all of a sudden there's a city there that no one's ever mentioned before. You can do that because it doesn't really break with canon. But you can't do away with Winterfell in season 7 because
Right.
it's been there in the first 5 seasons. It has to be there, right?
Yeah.
So, and I think that's what really created a certain difficulty for me because I established a couple of rules very early on with regards to what happens to the golden butterfly when they fulfill their mission, the one that they were sent for by Mother Earth. And that kind of contrasts with something else which is central to my overall writing, and that is to always provide a hopeful and positive ending. You know, there's a reason why they call me the queen of unconventional happy endings, because I always deliver on that. Because it's important to me. I like that in my own reading. I really don't like books that end miserably. I just don't. There's enough of that on TV. And so I had to, as I went into book 2, I mean, actually, I'm trying to answer your question. So as I went into book 2, and I was looking at the big challenge that Jason would have to face, I was looking at, so what is, I mean, 2019, what's the biggest challenge he could face? I mean, it's going up against the United Nations,
Yeah.
going up against, he lives in America, Midwest, you know, out there in the Midwest, going up against the United States government. And all of a sudden, I felt, no. I had this really, I don't want to turn this into a political novel, given the times we live in. I felt like, no, I just don't want to do this. I have to find another way. And then there was the other thing. I wanted to keep it realistic and without giving the ending away. I'm sure that since the two of you have read the last book, you know, you might know what I'm talking about. But finding a way that at the end of the book we are where we are.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
find it that it was satisfying in the sense that I know what happens at the end of the book, and I will never tell. You should definitely read the books because they're amazing. But what I like is that instead of going the political route, you sort of kind of made it like this internalized society of who Jason is, what he is, what all these other people are, and how they operate around the world. And I think that focusing more on the shape shifters and how they operate and coming at it from that aspect was really great, as opposed to, you know, having agencies like, you know, the Environmental Protection Agency or this political entity from this country be the source of the conflict
Yeah.
that happens throughout the story.
I mean, the interesting thing is we're talking about a young adult novel. So we're talking kids aged, depending on their maturity level, 12 and up, who can read this and enjoy this. Sorry?
She's literally 12. No, but that's
12
okay.
and up. Okay, that includes 32.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And when you're that age, when you're a teenager, when you're a maturing kid, your biggest challenge is not going to be the President of the United States, United Nations, or the EPA.
That's right.
It's going to be your parents, your teachers, all the grown-ups, all the adults around you.
The community.
Your body hair, your smell.
Yeah. That's something that you as a writer also need to consider. I mean, you can't write a book that is targeting young people that they won't be able to relate to. So having the struggle to a degree be about children, young people versus the grown-up world, the adult world, felt very natural. It's not something I did on purpose, and I swear I did not do this on purpose because that's not how I write. But I felt very satisfied at the end of it when I was reading through it and said, yeah, that actually makes sense.
So let's talk a little bit about the queer theme throughout the show, because it's not prevalent. I mean, it is, but it's very subtle. And I think it's important to talk about why it's so subtle and why it was important to portray it that way. I think showing showing these characters and these relationships within these books gives us literally the panorama view of everything that people are going through. But there are gay people in this story, and I wanted to talk a little bit about why you didn't call it out more, or why it was important to keep it subtle like that.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I agree that it is subtle, but it's definitely gradual.
Sorry, normal.
Yeah. Yeah.
You made it normal.
I made it. Yeah. And so there's a reason why. So Jason, our main character, is gay. That's no secret. It is a secret in book one. Well, it's not on page in book one. So I think every a gay reader will probably see it.
I think he didn't know though yet.
Oh yeah, he does. Oh yeah, of course he does. He knows Courtney. I mean, of course he does. He knows he's gay. But there's a very specific reason why I didn't want to put it on page, because as a writer of gay fiction, it is I am so sick and tired of being a writer of gay fiction. I'm a writer of fiction. This is a young adult fantasy novel. It's not a gay fantasy novel.
Right.
And I was afraid that if the and again, you know, all my books have gay main characters. So it's this is, to any of my regular readers, this would not have come as a surprise that Jason was gay, because my main characters always are. That's kind of like a promise. But if anybody else by chance would pick this up in the young adult fantasy section on Amazon, or in Barnes and Noble, or any other bookstore on the world, and they could read the entire first book and be thrilled by the story without having it spoiled. Oh my God, he's gay. I can't read this stuff. Because I have had this conversation with people, with friends, with acquaintances, with people around me so many times. Oh, I can't read your books. I'm not gay. And I'm like, oh, so I can't read Shakespeare?
That's so fucking terrible.
Yeah, but that's reality.
I
That is
know,
reality.
and it sucks. It sucks that we can't that anybody can't just walk into a bookstore and say, I mean, even going back to Harry Potter, and I'm not trying to compare your books to Harry Potter, but when I was a kid, I was reading Harry Potter, and my grandmother told me I was going to go to hell because that's the devil's book, or whatever the hell they were thinking at that time. But like, walking into a store, if there is a fantasy novel and the lead character is gay, that shouldn't be a deterrent in any way for somebody to buy a book. But the fact is, it is. And as an author, that's something that you have to think about every time you write a book. Yeah. And me, in my head, when I was reading the book, I was like, oh no, he's just normalizing it for everybody. He's making it, like, in my head, it was, this is how it should be.
Well, it is.
You don't think about it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. And you're more than welcome to go back and read the first book again, because you'll see when Jason meets Hannah, and her power as an owl is mind reading. So she's able to read people's minds. She knew, and she knows, and she says it on paper. It's on page. I know your secret. Your secret is safe with me. So she knows. Hannah knows. Laurel knows, because Laurel is bisexual, and she knows, you know, and there it is on page. She actually explains it. I think it's in the last book. She explains that there's a reason. I know you're gay because you're unlike the jock. You never once looked at my boobs. You always look. Yeah. You'll always talk to me on eye level. You know, whereas Peter, he always looks at my boobs. So there's, and it took me forever to find the name for Jason's love for Courtney, to find that name that works for, that is gender neutral.
Well, that was the other thing. Throw you off a little bit.
I had to do that on purpose, to find a name so that the heterosexuals would read it as Courtney as a girl, where it in fact is as a guy.
I read it as Courtney as a girl until I got into the book a little bit more and realized that, you know.
Well, you know, we're very good, even as members of the LGBT community. We are very good at normalizing ourselves and straight washing things. We're very good at that ourselves.
I think we have to be. I mean, it's like this protective part
Yeah.
of us.
But I think the other thing, and to the other half of your question with regards to making it as something normal, and God knows I hate that word, but I don't think we have a better one. Um, when I look at the younger generations today, when I see teenagers today and I talk to them, or when I talk even kids my son's age, to them having two fathers or two mothers, or uh, it's just not a big deal anymore.
Yeah.
So what?
I don't
And I
think it
think,
is. You're right.
and it's we're getting to this point slowly but surely. I mean, today you can, I don't, just to take a stupid thing like holding hands. I don't like holding hands because I was just never one
Right.
for that kind of stuff.
But I mean, for us, for our generation, that sort of kind of brings a negative reaction in people, right? And so
yes, yeah, but
for
absolutely,
us, you think about it. You look behind you when you're trying to hold hands with your partner if you wanted to,
yeah,
or even sharing something as simple as a kiss.
absolutely. It's and that's what I was going. That's what I was getting at. It's not just I don't like it, but even when I was doing it, and even when I am doing it to this very day, I'm always looking over my shoulder. Always looking over my
Yeah.
shoulder. And I've been married for 20 years. I'm still looking over my shoulder every time my husband and I walk down the streets because you just never know. And I'm so stoked. I'm so happy when I see two girls walk down the street holding hands, or two boys walking down the street just openly in love, just no worries, no cares. And I'm so happy that their generation is slowly but surely getting to this point where where they can be themselves without constantly having to look over their shoulders.
Yeah.
Is something coming to club me in the next
You
few
know,
seconds?
It's really interesting because I mean, obviously I'm 32. We've made that very clear. But
Sorry.
I didn't grow up um I in an era. I mean, I did in a way grow up where it was like still not okay
You
and
were in the in
hard.
between stage.
I
I would say.
definitely was, but I am the same way. If I hold somebody's hand or if I want to kiss them, and I'm like, fuck it, I'm empowered, I'm gonna do it anyway. But then I'm always constantly thinking in my head,
You're hyper conscious.
we shouldn't do this. We should
Mhm.
look around. We should make sure we're safe. Is this a good environment? And then you see people walking down the street holding hands, not caring, knowing that there's still so much turmoil within our community, especially currently right now, as we feel like we're kind of regressing a bit
Mm-hmm.
about homosexuality and about who we are and about being supportive. It it makes me nervous for people that aren't as hyper aware as I am.
Mm. Well, there. Yes and no, because I think, and then it's been one of the things that I've learned in my life as I've grown older and reflecting on this a lot, is the more confident you are about yourself and how you portray, how you carry yourself in public, the less likely that people are going to react to it.
Hmm.
If it's like the most given thing, the most natural thing for you in the world, even when you and here's, even with things like coming out. I mean, people think that coming out is this big event in your life when you're young. Fuck you. Coming out, you do for the rest of your life.
Yeah,
I
That's
mean,
right.
my last coming out will be when my husband takes me to the undertaker and says, "This is my husband. Can you bury it?"
I came out today at lunch.
Yeah. So I mean, it's a and every time, I mean, you can be 50, you can be 60, you can be 70. Every time you do it, there's this split-second decision-making process going on. Do I have to? Is it necessary in this specific situation?
Right.
Yes or no? What's going to happen? Will I be hurt? Could I be hurt? Yes or no? And I think the more self-confident we are about ourselves, the easier it gets, and also the way you then do it. You say, and coming out doesn't necessarily say, "Hey, you, I'm gay.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
like it up the butt." That's not the point. The point is saying things like, "My husband and I need an appointment for our son," or "Is it okay if my husband comes and turns in the TV tomorrow because I'm busy, but I'm calling?"
Right.
You know,
Or
and
I'm picking up my son, but you dropped him off. Hans dropped him off,
Yeah.
but Alex is picking
Yeah,
him up.
exactly. So it's everyday situations that kind of make it clear that you are gay, but in a non-gay situation.
Mhm.
And I think if you show people vulnerability, there's a greater chance that they'll take advantage of it.
You know, you were talking about like being bold and like embracing who you are a little bit. And personally, when I'm not in a relationship, I feel like I'm like Queen Mary. Like I am out there. I'm proud. I'm gay. Like I don't
Literally.
Oh my
hold it back.
Honey, you're on the internet every week.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
like it's there's no surprise. There's no like confusion.
Even when she's in a relationship.
When I start a conversation with somebody, they know that I'm gay. Like whether it's my voice, whether it's my mannerisms, whether it's the way I present myself, people know that I'm gay. But
You're
still,
literally rainbows and unicorns. But
I have a
yes.
rainbow fucking tattoo on my foot. That being said, but like it's funny because I portray myself like that personally because I'm so like comfortable with who I am. But then in a relationship, I'm still looking over my shoulder.
Yeah.
So that's like that's a concept that I actually haven't even thought about.
No,
Well,
but
because
Maybe it's like a protective, like I'm thinking about the other person.
your actions don't only affect you. That's why. You have someone else that you are technically accountable for. You're sharing your space, your life, your walk in life with another individual. And so when you're making decisions, you have to consciously think about that other person.
mm,
And so in doing that, and instinctively doing that, you're looking over your shoulder to make sure that the actions that you're taking are not affecting him physically, mentally, or emotionally.
but I think
And that's a
yeah.
pretty typical
But
experience.
I think
for most of us.
it's even more complex than that. I think it's also about how long you're in a relationship, because you've lived in your own skin for 32 years.
True.
But how many years have you lived in the relationship skin with someone else?
Mm.
My husband and I have been together for 18 years, and so it to me, I have never lived in a setting in an other distinct setting as long as I have lived with my husband. So for me, obviously, being in a relationship like that, for me is the new normal. That's for me. That's like the given,
Right.
right? So that's what feels really, really natural to me. If God forbid he were to divorce me or something were to happen and I suddenly found myself alone again, I would be a mess. I have no idea. I honestly know I would not know how to carry myself. I mean, or in public, I wouldn't. That would really wreck my self-esteem
So it's almost like
completely.
I've learned how to carry myself personally.
Yes.
Mhm.
And you've learned how to carry yourself personally, but also you've kind of
That
you now
extension.
carry yourself
Yeah.
with your better half.
That
Exactly.
extension has
Yeah.
become his personal.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
become a part of his personal.
Which is hopefully how a good marriage or relationship works.
One would hope, right?
One would hope, yeah. But again, I mean, just to take it back to your question about how and why I write young people as self-confident or looking at being LGBT as something just completely normal. I think it's because to them it is, but it doesn't mean that I make it trivial because if you look at book 2 and you look at Jason's coming out and how his mother reacted to
Yeah.
him
Yeah.
and that struggle, I think that is very real. And and we're not talking the level of bad coming out that you or I experienced because that is not as common anymore as it would have been when you were young or when I was young. Today, that is not as common anymore, especially not in a family like Jason's. I mean, he comes from a Catholic background. His
Yep.
mother's Portuguese, his father's Mexican, but they're not active Catholics. So his mother obviously reacts the way she does, the way most parents react, right? But she's actually fine. She doesn't have a problem with it. She's just scared.
Yeah.
And it takes her time. And I think that's I would say the most commonly occurring reaction from parents in this
course.
day and age. And I needed to depict that because I think it's unfair to teenagers to tell them everything's going to be rosy. You come out to your parents and they're going to sing kumbaya and everything is going to be so beautiful and roses are going to rain from the sky. That's not how it is for most kids. It's still difficult. It's
Yeah.
still challenging for ourselves primarily, but also for for those around us.
But also, too, it's not just about, when you come out, and I've shared this with everybody, but when you come out, you're not just doing something for yourself, you're doing something that's affecting other people.
Everyone
And-
around you.
Yeah, and it's a powerful and important thing that you're doing, but when you do it, you have to understand where the other person is and how they're going to reciprocate that. And they also, just like you processed the decision to come out, they're going to need to process what that means to them and how then best to move forward. So it's important to understand where people are. Like, for example, like my parents, when I came out to them, they were very angry. My mom was scared I was going to die from HIV. My dad was just masculinely angry. And it took years for me to come to terms with their denial, where they were in that process. I was just angry at them. I'm like, well, fuck you. This is my life. But in reality, they are going through something just as traumatic. Well, not just as, but similar to what somebody coming out is going through.
Well, you got to understand, parents have expectations, right? Oh, I have a son. Son is born. They're going to either go to the military, become a doctor, or do this or that. And, they're going to meet a wife and get married and have kids, and I'll be a grandmother. And those are the natural, or how would I say that, in quotation marks, normal expectations of parents, right? Because we are taught that all we're good for is to meet someone that you're going to share the rest of your life with and reproduce and leave your spawn on this earth so that when you're gone, you may continue. But the thing is that when you throw your parents a curveball and they have already had all these preconceived notions in their head of what they thought your life was going to be like.
And
then
they've
all of-
had them for a very long time. I mean,
Yes.
this isn't just something, and I think this is something we tend to forget is by the time we are ready to take the plunge and come out, we've struggled with it for years.
Yeah.
And then we tell our parents, Mom, Dad, there's something I need to tell you. That's when they start. That's when it begins for them. Unless, of course, they suddenly realize, oh my God, yeah, there was this sign and this sign and this sign. Oh my God, I should have known for the past 10 years. But that's when the process starts for them, and it's going to take a while. And again, it's kind of funny when you mention, that your mother was afraid that you were going to die of HIV, because that's when you were young. That's what people. That's
that was
what
the hysteria at the time.
That's what the heterosexual community knew about gay people at the time. They were dying of AIDS.
Yeah.
When I was coming out, my mom was afraid of me being molested by old men. That's what she was afraid of. Because when I came out, AIDS was a thing, but obviously the heads hadn't heard about it yet.
Did your mom blame your coming out on, at one point, my mother blamed my coming out on my priest, which clearly nothing ever happened between me and my priest, honestly. But for some reason, she threw this out there. What happened between you and this priest? And I'm like,
Again, but that was in the news at the time, right? We were talking
And it still
are we
is.
talking late 1990s, early 2000s?
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So obviously the Catholic Church already had a reputation at the time.
That's
Right,
right.
but did your mother ever say, "Hey, is this because you went through an experience?"
No, but it was kind of funny. I mean, the first day it was just fear, panic. It was
Yeah.
sheer panic. My parents actually made me burn my mom discovered my diaries as she was cleaning my room. I was in school, and she went into a drawer where she didn't have any business, and she found my diaries and she read them. And I had literally 3 months or 3 weeks before my mom found my diaries, I had for the first time actually used the word "I am gay" in my own diary. So had she cleaned my room a couple weeks sooner, nothing would have happened. But unfortunately, my parents made me burn all of my diaries. They made me burn 8 years of diaries in the open fireplace that night. My dad picked me up from school, and I knew I was in trouble when I saw the car up at the exit from the school. And my mom did not speak to me for 3 days. Every time she saw me, she disappeared crying. She did not talk to me for 3 days. And after 3 days, she came into my room, she hugged me, and she said, "I still love you." But by that time, my dad had already made sure that I was so far stuffed back into the deepest closet we had in the house, key thrown away. that I had convinced myself. Because and then there was the stuff, we need to send you to psychiatrists. My parents were panicking. They were completely, I'm telling you, they were completely unprepared for this to happen. This was January, February 1985. So they were completely unprepared for this to happen, and they obviously reacted the only way they knew how. And
At the time, that was pretty
at
normal.
the time, yeah, it was
Yeah.
it was pretty normal.
That was the normal reaction for a lot of parents.
What's crazy to me though, like, I mean, personally, if I look at photos or videos of me as a kid or anything, like, there's me in a tube top, there's me with curlers in my hair, there's me trying to put on makeup, there's videos of me dancing to Grease as like a 8-year-old kid. I mean, historically in my life, I'm like, why were you surprised?
No, but
were you were in denial just as much as I was in denial.
It's called bias.
Mhm.
It's called psychologically. It's called bias. You only see the things you want to see, and you disregard the things you do not want to see.
Mhm.
The things that don't necessarily fit the pattern, which is why it's so bloody difficult to change people's opinion on politics, because we just have this filter. And parents are exactly like that. But it's only afterwards when you tell them, and all of a sudden, the filter doesn't work anymore, and they go like, "Oh my God, now I know why he was dancing to Grease."
Well, it's
And trying to dance like
If
Cindy.
they realize that, I mean,
But-
it's not
Yeah.
necessarily just because you know that Grease is kind of a thing.
yeah.
I mean, had it,
But thinking back, it's like people called me gay before I knew what gay was,
yeah, same here.
and it's
But
like,
that doesn't mean that, when I was called gay, I was 6 or 7 years old. I sincerely doubt my classmates at the time even knew what it was. It was just
no,
a
I'm
classy
saying
insult.
family members.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you something though. As long as those words don't come out of your mouth to your parents, there's still a chance. My son isn't
Yeah,
gay. He
yeah.
hasn't said anything to me.
Yeah.
This
And, you know-
conversation took a left fucking turn.
It did. No, but I mean,
It is
it's
what
a
it is.
great conversation.
No, but it's a very, I think that's the point though here, right? We're talking about why am I portraying it in a specific way for a specific generation today?
Yeah.
And I think it's important because that's how luckily, the young, I would hope. I mean, obviously there are other people and they don't get a chance to get their voices heard in this book. Because I try to stay away. People with really freaked out opinions usually end up dead in my books. But
I
why
appreciate
would
that.
no? But honestly, why would I give a voice to people
You don't have
with
to.
no? I
you
mean,
can totally tell the story without having to bring in all the negative Nancys of the world trying to tell us that we're wrong.
right. Let Pence and Chick-fil-A write their own fucking books.
It's
correct.
Can I have an amen in here?
Yeah, seriously.
Fuck her.
Exactly.
Oh my God, Chris, welcome back.
Chris was gone for a minute, but we got him back. No, I think it's fun. So, Hans, in the essence of keeping time, obviously, and trying to wrap up with the rest of that we have, tell us or tell our readers where we can get these amazing books, and of course, share a little bit of yourself, maybe your website, how people can get a hold of you if they need to. So that you could, possibly have more people to interact with besides us three.
Yeah, exactly. Especially if anybody wants to make friends. I'm going back to remember the first time we talked to each other and I offered for people to reach out to me.
Yes.
So let me do that again. That offer still stands. So, I mean, you can buy my books literally anywhere online these days. Amazon, Apple Books, Barnes & Noble. So they're everywhere. I think my publisher sends them to like 250 websites around the world. And you can
better shit. They're good. People need to buy that shit.
yeah,
Hello?
and you can go and they're obviously available as paperbacks, which you can see right here.
That's right.
They're
That's my own
available.
personal collection.
Yeah, they're available as ebooks and they're also available as audiobooks. And they're beautifully narrated by my good friend Van Sebastian, who did such an amazing job on the animal voices. So
We had you both on the show.
I know,
We
last time.
co-hosted. They came and they didn't come, but they joined us.
there's a lot of come on this
Oh.
show.
They joined us via video, obviously on Skype, but they were both on, and he does do a wonderful job narrating your
he does.
books. And I'm starting to see that you agree, and you're using him for some of your other projects and
Yeah.
stuff that you had already had published prior.
Yes. So we're working
excited
on.
about
We're
that.
next. We're working on. I want to get. It's kind of, which is a different topic, but audiobooks are kind of like on Vogue. They're the thing of the day.
Yeah.
Fewer and fewer people read, and the ones who do, they tend to take power naps all the time, right?
Yeah.
So it's a bit of a thing. So I try to
Jab
get
at
all
me.
of my backlist out on audiobooks. But
So
I
I'm excited though because the one book that I would love for him to narrate that I would totally go for all over again is Last Winter's Snow.
okay, yeah, it's on the list.
Good.
We'll get there
I'm excited.
eventually.
I just want to say, in defense of audiobooks, because of the way the world works now, we are
Mhm.
all super busy all the time. And
Okay,
if
go
I
ahead.
can listen to something and still do my job or still get something done around the house, I'm going to do it.
Yeah, no,
Valid.
I'm not judging people by how they read their books. I just, having been at the Rainbow Book Fair in New York and at Outright in Washington, there are people coming up to me who just, they pick up the book, and they go and they smell the
And they
book
smell
and
it.
they say, I just need that smell of book, and I'm like, are
Yeah.
you going to come now? It's no, it's totally fine. I mean, whatever rocks your boat is fine. That's why we do it. Ebook, paperback, audiobook is, and I'll be honest, especially with this series, I have one more book out and two are currently in production. But especially with this series, with the animal voices, it just adds something to
Oh,
it
yeah.
Yeah,
that,
it does.
I mean, the only other chance would have been for readers to fly to Sweden and have me read to them, but that's
Eh.
a little bit expensive for most of most people. But anyway, if you want to get a hold of me, it's actually fairly simple. If you know how to spell my name, Hans Hirschi, Hirschchi, you enter that into Google and you find me because I'm like number one. I'm everywhere. So, but
You must have paid a lot of money for that.
no
No, it's to do a top search, or is it?
fame,
She's famous now. Look at her.
infamous.
Yes, I love
Whatever.
Something like that.
That's what happens when you're here for like the fifth time.
Truth.
but yeah, but Hirschi.sc is my website, and Hans at Hirschi.sc is my email address. You'll find me on Instagram, you'll find me on Facebook, and yeah, honestly, reach out to me, email me, I mean, it's just I think most authors like to be in touch with their readers. Just get an email, say, I read your book, I liked it, I loved it, it changed my life. I've had all kinds of people reach out to me with various feedback and why they've done so, very similar to the emails that you received, and I'm not making a living as an author, just putting that out there. But what really makes my day is when you get an email from someone out there who's read your book, when you touched somebody's life somehow, and that really is why I'm doing this. And I'm doing this for all the kids who I want not to grow up the way I do, where you had no such resources available, right? So, and by all means, if you suffer from anxiety and you don't want to go out and meet people, email me, make a friend online. I mean, I want to be available to
And
people.
he's very good at being social online. Like, I mean,
I
there's
know.
genuinely like good substantial interactions with Hans.
I'm
It's-
actually a good friend in person too.
yes, it's never a
Yes.
short story with him online, but he's
Oh,
also an
shut
amazing
up.
person. Oh, thank you. I like it when people call me by my real name, call me bitch, or tell me to shut
I'm
up.
taking another step from my fidgety huge here.
Yeah. Well, speaking of that, do you want to tell us what we're drinking really quick?
Oh yeah, we're drinking fidgety huges. So shout out to Eugene Yvonne in California, who inspired this drink, or the Stitches Delight. It's actually cranberry juice and, and tequila, because
And
I
tequila.
hate vodka. So it's cranberry juice and tequila.
And
Fidgety
and
huge.
it's actually pretty good.
Yeah,
Delicious.
no, it's not bad.
So Hans, again, thank you for
Mm.
coming all the way
So
to New
good.
Haven.
I'm
as
drunk.
part of your. I love it. That's we did our job.
Yeah, we've been drinking
Show's
all
over.
day.
No, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule. Also, obviously you came into New York for the Rainbow Book Fair, and for traveling all the way to New Haven and experiencing New Haven and the books. are amazing and coming on the show and talking about them. It's amazing. So stick around.
Thank you for having me.
He's still going to be with us. We have a couple of more things that we
I don't
want to
think
go
you'll ever
through.
get rid of me again. I'm going to
No.
stay here in Chris's chair.
That's
Chris, you're moving over here.
We'll move her to the back of the room. No, but thank you. Thank you once again for,
Thank you for having me.
being a
It's
friend of the
fun.
show and for being with us.
Yeah, thank you for doing the show. I mean, as a regular listener, let me just say that on behalf of some of the listeners, I can't speak for everybody, but you do such an amazing show, and I wake up every Tuesday morning in Sweden, download the fucking thing, listen to it. Thank you. It's great.
You're
I love it.
welcome.
Thank you.
And then we get emails like I literally almost either tripped on a log while I was laughing so hard, or spit out my coffee, or
Yes.
yeah. So we have that effect.
It's engaging. What are you doing?
I want to plug something in. I want to make a quick phone call.
Oh, we're doing that.
Yeah, we're doing
I was
something.
like, why?
Oh,
is
we're
she,
doing that.
Why is she unplugging our soundboard? And I'm like, oh,
What is
okay.
she doing?
Don't trust her. Ever.
So you know.
Well, at least you won't
No,
have
you
me.
can do that. Oh,
EU.
All right.
Okay.
Sorry, I messed everything up.
of course. You know, I don't know what he's doing, but you know, I guess we'll find out.
I have a hunch.
I think I suddenly do
Please
too.
enjoy this Verizon ringback tone while your party is free.
It's not
Oh.
Chris, even though that's the ring back.
Hi, Nick.
Hi, Mama Kim.
Hi,
How are you?
Kim.
You're
Hey,
on
guys.
air with Hans, Tom, and me.
Suddenly the
Well-
world fell silent. Hi, Kim.
Kim, can you hear us?
Hello.
I think she got sort of.
She probably hung up. She probably got scared. No.
Yeah, hold on 1 second. Give me this. Sorry, guys. Excuse us for a minute. You might hear a little buzzing sound.
Ouch.
Hello.
Miss Kim, are you there?
I'm here.
Hi.
Good.
Hey, guys. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
We're doing wonderful.
It's
Oh, that's the 10-second delay, right?
Well,
Nipple,
yeah, she-
Nipplegate.
I know. I think I won't try and watch at the same time. I think that's messing me up. So.
Okay.
Well, we're hearing ourselves back on what if you're playing the show live on your end, we're gonna hear
I
ourselves
am.
back.
I'll shut it off. Hang on.
Well, turn it down anyway. Don't shut it off. You want
There
to
we
see us.
Oh.
Hi.
Well, that's okay.
So I wanted to give you a quick call because one, I wanted to connect you to you to Hans, but also because like I feel like personally you and Hans are kind of
we
like our heart and
We-
part of our heart and soul of the show. And so I thought it would be fun to have you guys both on the show to just say hi.
Oh, that's nice.
well. So Hans, I've been looking forward to seeing you.
Well, there
so-
you go. Now you see me. Now you
There
don't.
there you go. So
You
I
should
think
do
when I
that.
tried
Now
to-
you see me. Now you
I-
don't.
I
Take a cue.
can't see you. I'll see you later because I had to shut the show off. But I'll
Oh,
see you later.
okay. Well, anyway, Kim, thank you so much. I got the package. Thank
Oh,
you.
good.
Thank you. Thank you.
You-
Thank you.
You are so welcome. So it's I thought, well, since you're here, and I know I can send it to.
I'm not
you know,
sure
to Sweden.
if it makes any sense, but if others can see the wall, I got kind of a miniature version of that beautiful rainbow quilt. Thank you,
That's
Kim.
right.
Much appreciated.
So you are most welcome. So I had to include you in the group. So
So
who's
so Mama Kim, real quick before we have to move on, I just want to ask you,
Yes.
you've read the Golden One series, right?
Oh, I love them. They are so. I didn't do the audio, but I read them. They are. I think it should be made into like a show, like a series, like a on Netflix or something. I haven't seen the whole show. I don't know if you talked about it, but I think it should. But I don't know if Hans would want to do that. So
No.
Oh,
yeah, of course
yeah.
I would.
Oh, he's on board.
Yes. Yeah, we talked about this during the break. No, I mean
Oh.
absolutely. I think it's every writer's dream to have their book. You know, I mean and then this isn't primarily about money. This is just about being able to make the story available to more people. And just
It-
as the audiobook reaches audiences that would not read the book.
Exactly.
A movie or a TV show reaches an audience that does not pick up a book. I mean, let's face it, how many people who've seen Harry Potter have actually read the books? I haven't. So
actually, I the last ones I didn't so much, but the earlier ones I read. But
Yeah.
but yours, of course, I read all of them, and I wish there were more. But I'm
well,
looking
the
forward
next
to,
one's in the
to your-
making, you know.
I
and
know. So
have you
I
read
that
all
to
of
look
mine?
forward to. Most of them I've read.
Wow,
I-
she's
I-
good.
I-
You gotta love Kim. That's just like
we do love Kim.
Mama Kim. She's just like the best. I have some
You know,
really good readers. Can I just give a quick shout out to Tracy because I know she's listening in Toronto.
Hi, Tracy.
Hi,
Tracy.
Tracy.
Toronto.
So that and Wendy up in is it Wisconsin? I think Wendy's in Wisconsin. So some of my
Hi,
best
Wendy.
fans. So I've got some really amazing readers. So thank you for that.
well, we all love you and love what you do. So
It's bad lighting. In case you're wondering why I'm all red and flushing, it's the lighting. The old
No,
queen's
but I do
flushing.
have to concur with Kim. It's been an amazing relationship to have you with us for so long and be on our show for so many of your projects because you do great work and I think that people need to know about.
So
it.
how do we top this next time? You come to Sweden, we do this live in.
We're
Oh
gonna
my
do it
God!
live.
Don't even play with me.
I would be all
now
over
that
it.
would be fun.
Wouldn't
Yeah.
it? Wouldn't
Mama
it?
Kim's gonna come.
I'll be there too. I'll just tag
Ooh,
along. That'd
Okay,
be awesome.
okay. Looks like I need to build an annex to the house.
Yeah, but you gotta add my ticket to the gay
Gay
talk
Talk
credit card
credit
too. So, yeah.
We'll do that.
All right, Mama Kim, I
Very
love you so
good.
much. We just wanted to give you a
Love
quick
you
call.
too. Oh,
Thank-
you're so sweet. Love you guys.
Thank you.
guys
Take
have
care.
safe journeys back home, Hans.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye, guys.
All right. Well, that was, of course, Mama Kim. Thank you so much for giving us a call. Oh, see?
That's my ass.
This is why you don't touch my stuff.
That was just too much Brussels sprouts.
Oh, yes. All right. So listen, we've got a couple of things that we need to quickly go over before we wrap up the show and bring it home. So, do you want to?
I would love to, but we're like running long.
Okay. So we'll leave that for next week.
I'm gonna say one quick thing about it, and then we can move on. So,
All
as we know, we've talked about it on the show 1,000 times. The LGBTQ homeless youth is astronomically percentage-wise higher than the heterosexual homeless youth. Not to say that that's not important, but there's also a lack of beds in LGBT-friendly centers for those youth. And Tyler Perry, who needs claps, and he's getting them right now, is building a new studio in Atlanta. And in Atlanta, he will make sure that that studio also includes beds for not only women who have suffered, who have been raped or kicked out of their homes, but also the LGBTQ plus community. And so for that, we thank you so much. And I wish I could dive in more to this conversation, but we should wrap up the show.
Yeah. All right. Well, listen, with that being said, what we're going to do is, do you want to do the Mama Kim minute?
Might as well.
We might as well. We
And
just
you have a
literally
full
had
minute because I will not interrupt you.
All right. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to set a timer here.
Mhm.
Hey
let's
Siri, set a
see.
timer
I'm
for 1
nervous.
minute.
I don't know why it always makes me nervous.
Lord have mercy. Let's see.
Perfect. All right.
Go.
So, Mama Kim's Minute, everybody. So, number one, California makes PrEP and PEP available without prescription. Two, Queer Eye, we're in Japan. See the Fab Five going international. Three, Supreme Court appears divided as it weighs the LGBTQ issues going on currently. Four, Hoser? I don't even know who
Hoosier.
this is. Hoosier?
Hoosier, yeah. Indiana people.
Okay. Waved the trans flag while singing his biggest hit, and the audience went wild. Five, Pete Buttigieg at LGBTQ Town Hall said, "My blood not welcome in this country," which is true. So that's Mama Kim's Minute.
Not anywhere else either for that.
So what do we got? How many
What?
seconds left?
Oh, okay.
She totally forgot that she was
No,
setting
well,
the timer.
you had the timer. It was just like 10 seconds at least.
All right. Well,
All right,
she
great.
made it.
You're fine.
All right. So we're going to move on to our gay talk term.
And that's
of-
all Hans.
And of course, it's brought to you by
GayRealEstate.com.
Okay, Hans, what do
I
we
just
have?
came, but that's sorry about that. Well, since I'm here,
Uh-huh.
Her Majesty, the Queen of Unconventional Happy Endings, I figured what would fit better than to define myself. So the gay talk term today is queen.
Queen. And what is queen?
And it says here, woman of low morals. How
Well,
fitting.
how fitting.
How fitting. Number one, designation among male homosexuals for one another. Generally, a queen is thought of as the fellow who plucks his eyebrows, splashes on Chanel number 5, etc. A queen is a man who goes to blue-blooded movies. Oh,
Blue-blooded movies. Okay, so our
It's
gay
an old
talk
book.
term is queen.
Yeah, well, I mean,
All right.
I'm a blue blood.
All right. So, I don't. Do you have an on this day in gay history?
I actually do.
All right. Well, I appreciate
and
it.
it's kind of important because there's a lot going on in Uganda right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
October 14th, 2009, Uganda Anti-Homosexuality Act submitted to Parliament. So the bill calling for the death penalty for Ugandans convicted of homosexuality was brought before a member of Parliament, David Bahati. After dropping the death penalty to life in prison, the bill passes on December 20th, 2013, and is signed into law by the President of Uganda on February 24th, 2014. The Constitutional Court of Uganda ruled the law invalid August 1st, 2014. So yeah,
Yeah.
that is today in gay history.
All right.
And unfortunately, they're trying it all over again.
I know.
It's
Literally, I saw it. I think I saw it 2 days ago, and then this popped up, and I was like, we should read it. We should put this in there. So
It's no, because it gives you a historical context of how long this struggle for equality rights in Uganda has been going on, and the situation given what's about to happen or what could happen,
Yeah.
and given the temperature of the world and how we even stand here in this country, and those
I think especially here in the United
Yeah.
States, because just to say that, I mean, this needs to be said, that a company like Chick-fil-A is paying money to an organization who's actively trying to push this legislation back through parliamentary process as we speak in Uganda. So go eat your chicken elsewhere, please.
Yeah.
yeah, and they're literally calling the bill. I mean, in propaganda anyway.
Yeah.
The kill the gays bill. So
and sadly, I would definitely listen. I don't eat at Chick-fil-A, and I would love to have a chicken sandwich, but could you get your shit together? I've been
they
to
did get their shit together.
I've been to 3 Popeyes, and I have yet to be able to get that freaking chicken sandwich.
Oh, come on. Go to Costco, get a rotisserie chicken for
And-
$4.99.
And do it
That's
myself. No,
literally-
they charge
yeah.
you 7% tax on that shit here in Connecticut now. All right, listen, guys, thank you so much. If you love the show, make sure that you go subscribe, rate, and review on your favorite podcasting service. By doing so, you get the latest and greatest of our show delivered right to your favorite device as soon as the episodes are published. You can also support us on Patreon. By doing so, you, our listeners, can donate money to our cause and help us out here on the show. We do collect those donations on a monthly basis, and they can be in any denomination of $1 or more. Chris is not here, so I'm going to throw this over to you.
So next week we are welcoming back, because we've had him on the show before,
That's
Dante
right.
Gennaro, to talk about Positive Prevention Connecticut Work Group, which is a positive HIV work group that's helping spread the word about positive prevention.
And it's amazing.
Yeah.
And one thing that many people may not know about him is that he wrote a book. He's also an HIV positive man who's been living with HIV for the better part of probably almost 3 or plus years. So I'm super excited to have him in studios. We're going to get to talk to him about that and hopefully trying to understand if his personal situation was the inspiration for joining a group like this and helping others also coming into and helping people.
All right. So thank you to our guest host, Mr. Hans M Hirschi. Thank you for joining us today. Obviously, it's crazy to have you in studio, and we were so happy to have you here, and we love you so much. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what else to say. We love you. Thank you so much.
Well, it's been obviously it's been a huge privilege and a lot of fun to be here. So
I'm super giddy and excited because not only is he in our studio, Hans is in my home. I hope that I was welcoming enough.
And I'm in Chris's chairs.
That's right.
Can we wrap this thing?
Yeah, put a
Yeah.
rubber on it.
Yes, exactly.
Can we put a rubber on it? Say that.
Can we put a rubber on it already?
Yes, let's do it.
Okay, so our show is available on our website, gaytalk20.com, under show and episodes. It's also available as a free download on iTunes, Google Play Music, and Stitcher Radio.
Go Hans!
Nick announces you can find us on social media: Facebook, Gay Talk 2.0, Instagram, Gay Talk 2.0, Twitter, @Gay Talk 20. You can email us at gaytalk2.0@gmail.com. Tom, take it away.
And if you need to reach out to us, you can just head on over to our website. There you can leave comments, suggest topics, submit a question for the cast. You can submit a question for an individual host or any of our guests. You can also call us and leave us a voice message via phone. We can answer those calls for you on the show. That phone number is 429-8255. And if you need those digits, wait, no, I already said them.
that's 334.
334 Gay Talk. Anyway, y'all get the point. Don't forget that we do stream live every Monday at, well, now 6:30. We'll get it eventually. PM. And you can access our live stream on digitalstreamradio.com. Ladies and gents, with that, that is our show. I would like to thank you all, and y'all have a good night. Bye.
Bye. Can I go pee now?
Thank you for listening to this episode of Gay Talk 2.0. Tune in next time for more dish.